Hey, it's Lola Romero. Welcome to my On the Radar beat breakdown of Brave by ASTU. The artist is ASTU. She is signed to Empire. We met, almost a year ago. And when we met, we just vibed instantly. And she asked me one day, everybody knows me as an engineer. And she asked me one day, do you produce? And I said, I do. And I just started playing stuff for her. And she was just honestly loving like everything. And she picked Brave. And I was like, okay, let's go. For a long time, I have considered myself engineer first. And these days, I am really living in both bubbles, producer and engineer. I'm from the Bay Area, and proudly. And when I was young, music was just everything. It's what got me through all the moments, got me through life. And was, my rock, as it is for most people in working in music now. And when I was in high school, my parents were like, okay, what are you going to do with your life? Go get a job. And I didn't know. To be honest with you, I hadn't thought about it too much, but my love for music came through. I had a thought. And when I was like, you have to work for the rest of your life. Everybody does, at least over here in the US. So I thought to myself, like, what could I do every day for the rest of my life and be happy? And that was music. I didn't grow up playing instruments, and I didn't grow up like singing or anything like that. And I have no like classical training. And I stumbled upon a recording class at San Francisco City College. I was trying to make it to my English class. I went to the wrong building. Broadcast and English building were right next to each other. So I walked in on a recording class, and I was like, I just felt at home. I looked around and I said, this is me. This is what I want to do. Hopped online, checked out the broadcast course, and next semester I was in it. From that point, though, again, parents were like, what are you doing? So I moved to LA to get poppin', and I went to LA Film School, and things just took off from there. After I graduated from LA Film, like most people, I was an aspiring engineer. That's what I really wanted to do, but I was living in LA. I was personal training. I was working at Hall of Fame on Fairfax. And I was, like I said, just like really trying to be an engineer, but things were kind of quiet. One day I got an email from the studio manager from Record One, which was owned by Aftermath, Dr. Dre. And he said, hey, one of my runners suggested that I reach out to you. We're looking to hire runners right now. Are you interested? And I said, yes, absolutely. We met for an interview, and then it was just on and popping. That guy who said that the manager should reach out to me was an old classmate of mine. And to be honest, we didn't really meet in school. When I got hired, his name is Julio. He's a fantastic engineer. I said, Julio, I have to be honest with you, I don't remember meeting you in school. And he said, Lo, don't worry about it. To be honest, I don't think we met at all. But he remembered all of like my projects and my participation in class. And when it came time to suggest or hire new people for Aftermath, he threw my name out there, and it worked out. I'll appreciate him forever for that. I think the connections that you make with people and the way that you grow and build together is what opens doors for opportunities. Yeah, working for Dre is like, man, that is like the elevator to success, honestly. He will give you all the keys. And if you're one of the greats, that one of the greats that he views as a great, he's going to lift you up, and he's going to teach you everything he knows. And it wasn't often like, hey, let me show you this. It's just listening when he talks, and listening when he's talking to other people, when he's instructing people in the room. That really molded my musical brain going forward. I think one of the craziest sessions that I've ever ran, we were making a song, and every artist and producer in the room was on shrooms. except for me. But a more PC story. The very first time that I engineered for Dre, I was still an assistant engineer, and I had already like learned a lot. A lot of engineers pulled me under their wings, and Dre was around. I was like running and assisting, so I was taking care of the whole building. But if anybody needed an engineer, I would jump in. So Dre walks out into the living room, and he was like, "Yo, is there an engineer here? Lo, you engineer?" I said, "Yeah, I got you." He said, "All right, come on." Inside though, I was sweating. I was like, "Oh my God, why did I say that?" But I had to, you have to put yourself out there. You got to take the moments when they present themselves to you. So I went in there, set up the mic, set up my session, got ready. We're recording. Everything is going smooth. All of a sudden, Pro Tools crashes. And I'm like, "Oh no." I'm like, "I'm sorry, Dre. I'm sorry." He's like, "It's cool. It's cool. It's good." I got Pro Tools back up. We get rocking again. It crashes again. And I'm like, "Oh my God, the computer crashed." So I thought like 4 times in the session. Later on, and that's the story, right? Like everybody's like, "Oh yeah, the first time Lo engineered for Dre, the computer crashed 5 times and she just kept going." Maybe like, I'm not kidding, like probably a year, maybe 2 later, I was working in Pro Tools and all of a sudden my screen disappeared, but Pro Tools didn't quit. So I was like, I looked through my key commands and I was like, what did I just do? I hit Command W, which closes your session window, but keeps Pro Tools and your session open. That was the biggest aha moment I've ever had. I thought right back to that Dre session. And what I kept doing was hitting Command W instead of Command E to cut my track. Man, I never even told anybody that until right now. It was wild. I couldn't believe that I did that. That was insane. But it was so wild for like years later to make that mistake in a non-crucial moment and have the time to figure it out. But the story still stands, right? The computer kept, it wasn't the computer, it was me. But things kept going bad, and the way that I persevered showed everything. Keep it on the low came from Instagram. When Instagram not first came out, but early years of Instagram, like 2015, I think, 15, 16. I said to my cousin, I said, "I need a handle. I want it to be dope. What you think?" He said, "Keep it on the low." I ran with it, and it stuck. And it ultimately though, it became part of my process, right? I'm kind of like a keep my head down and work hard, and I pick my head up when it's time, So keep it on the low became like this kind of like a mantra for me, meaning like I keep everything on the tuck until it's time, right? I'm not somebody who's walking around like boasting. I'm not walking around with a big head. I'm focused on the work, on good work. And, like I said, I keep it on the tuck until it's time. I have had some really, really incredible and beautiful accomplishments. I'm a 3-time Grammy-winning engineer, multiple projects with Anderson .Paak, and I'm also a non-playable character in GTA, Contract 5. Come see me online. And then Super Bowl. I worked with Dre on all of the pre-recorded audio for his Super Bowl performance. And those 3 things, that takes the cake. Actually, I'm gonna add a 4th one in there, Pensado's Place. My episode on Pensado's Place was definitely on my checklist. It was on all of those things were things that I had really like dreamt about. Oh my God, like I can't wait until I get here. I hope I can make it this. I hope I make that. And all 3 of those just check. My top 3 plugins right now, currently, FabFilter Anything, of course, but I've been really digging into the Pro Q and all of its capabilities, which really changes how you're EQing, in my opinion. I also love the El Rey compressor. Throw that on almost everything. Shadow Hills mastering compressor, and Soothe. You have those, and you will have an amazing session. Yeah, of course. I as leading as an engineer, Pro Tools. I learned Pro Tools in and out. I mean, in and out, like all key commands, hardly any clicking. I got one hand on the mouse and I got one hand on the keyboard, and the only time my hand leaves the mouse, hit the keyboard, right back. So Pro Tools for sure. And in working for Dre, I was mostly for the most part when we were making projects, I was recording a line of producers across from me. So I'm recording and arranging in real time. So I got really, really good at reading waveforms and manipulating waveforms. Flash forward, I start learning Ableton to just get more in my producer bag. And I realized that Ableton and Pro Tools have a lot of similarities. They even share some key commands. Some they don't. And I've learned that the hard way too. But yeah, so then when I learned how to move around in Ableton, I started doing a little combo situation. I start something in Ableton, get my beat going, do, whatever it is that I feel like I need to do in Ableton, and then I drop it in Pro Tools and I make it better. And I'm building a song from the very beginning, right? Like I'm never just making beats. I'm making a beat with a full song in mind. So that's part of why I jumped from Ableton back to Pro Tools. I'm mixing throughout the entire process. Another thing I learned from Dr. Dre. And I just do that combo. I jump from Ableton, drop it in Pro Tools, hop back on Ableton, drop it back in Pro Tools, and then just kind of move back and forth like that. Yeah, working for Empire has been an amazing experience, and Empire is really, really leading with putting the spotlight on women in entertainment and women in music specifically. Currently, with my team here at Empire, I've got three female engineers, two up and coming, one very solid, Baby D. She recorded Peru by Fireboy. And I just have a dope team of women. This one of the first times in a studio experience where I've been surrounded by women in the studio. It's dope. I appreciate it. The first female producer that I ever worked with was Track Girl. And for me, just being in spaces with women is inspiring. She's, of course, incredible. Wonder Girl is also incredible. But I swear, just being around people and being around women in studio spaces and in entertainment spaces is what's inspiring to me. My number one piece of advice, which I guess sometimes can kind of sound cliche, but perseverance. Perseverance and promoting, right? Don't be afraid to promote yourself. And you have to move through those tough times, and you have to encourage yourself to push through. There were so many days where I came home and was like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. But, every morning I woke up, took a deep breath, shake it all off, and hit it again, So it's that perseverance that'll get you through. All right, let's get into it. So the first track that I started with was a piano loop. Don't be afraid of loops, and don't let anybody tell you there's anything wrong with loops. No, there is not. It's all about how you freak it, all about how you manipulate it. For me on this one, I made some cuts, I flipped some notes around, but I liked the loop and I kept it pretty simple. So once I got those piano chords in there, I went ahead and laid a snap on top, again, keeping it sparse, keeping it free, making room for the vocalist. after I put the snap in, we did need to fill a little bit more space. So I laid a hi-hat in. Again, sparse, cool, but it needed it. Typically, when I'm building things out, like I said, I like to leave a lot of room for what could and should and would happen in the song. So I really just start by building out a couple of 8-bar sections. That gives us some room to play around when we drop it in Pro Tools for the artist to record. And continuing to build out the drums, you obviously need a kick. So I laid this kick in here. With this kick and with most kicks, I play around with volume, of course, right? And I also play around with the time of the kick. So some have tail on it and some don't. And it just depends on where we are in the song that you hear that. So that's where we started. Like I said, the loop was very bare, very sparse to begin with, but she loved it. She had melodies right away. So I just gave her the loop as is. And then I started building around her once we got some vocal parts in there. So let's jump over to Pro Tools. You'll see in my Pro Tools session, this is like my final mix session. So you're going to see a lot of plugins and you see a lot of cuts. So I dropped everything in Pro Tools and I just got to work. Started working on that timing, started working on my mix. And I took it from like that basic loop. Also, again, with timing, in Ableton, I love like time, stretch, and pitch in Ableton. But in Pro Tools, I love the nudge. I nudge by samples and I love it. It's just, it always nudges the amount of time that I'm feeling that I want it to go. One of the first things I did when I got in Pro Tools was working on the sound of this piano. I had to take out that low end to make room for the low end that I wanted to put in the mix with the kick and the sub. I started by doing a roll off on the top end so that I would feel comfortable and have a lot of room to play with in adding top end too. So I added the filter on the top, which cut off some of the reverb from the loop, which I wanted. But I wanted to hear more of like the actual playing of the keys, right? I wanted those to cut through more. So I just started adding top frequencies that I know and love and like. And I generally, especially with Pro, drop it where I think it needs to go and then slide it around to hit the sweet spot. Once I got the piano sounding how I wanted it to sound, I went back to my drums. Like I said, the song started with piano and drums. So that timing on the snap was killing me and the timing on the hi-hat was killing me. But like I said, I love the nudge in Pro Tools, generally at 100 samples, few to the right, few to the left, however it works out. I just kind of do everything by ear. Let's talk about this kick. The kick go crazy. I always I swear, kick and bass, that is one of the most important things in the song to me. And I make everything fit around that. I know, different engineers have different processes. For me, I start with the kick and then I move to the bass and I move back to the kick and make sure those two are blending as well as they can. Then I start adding everything else in and working on the mix as a whole. But this kick, it had to be like a smack you in the face type kick, which came from source selection. I went as far as adding verb to the kick, which, you know, is like sometimes you get some shit for adding verb to a kick, but sometimes it works. And this was one of those times where it worked. I didn't add verb to the kick itself, but I sent all the drums to a bus, and that bus had some light verb on it. So for one, it made all of the drums sound like they were in one space together. And that really is the idea in using verb with drums. But it also just gave me that tail and that smack that I wanted to on the kick. A lot of it came, though, from EQing. Again, low cut, top cut, and manipulating everything in between. From there, I went back into Ableton and I started laying a bass line. I was like, okay, wait a minute. We need to make this a real song. So I had to go back and lay a bass line on it. So once I got back in Ableton to work on the bass, I just grabbed a bass sound that worked for me, and then I manipulated from there. Started pitching, cutting, chopping, and doing what needed to be done. And looking for a MIDI bass sound for this song, I found this really cool, I called it a synth bass, but I guess it is, but maybe not even technically. But I was just playing around with patches, and I ended up making this really, really cool, like synth bass percussion type sounds. And for the most part, it follows the bass, but then there's some moments where the bass cuts out and then you hear that synth bass popping through, particularly on the bridge. I ended up finding some guitar chords from a completely different pack and threw those in there to fill some of the gaps that were happening between piano notes. And I got this. Adding that guitar to the piano, to me, gave this push and pull in the song that she was doing vocally too. So it, again, worked out together. So once I laid those in, we went back to Pro Tools. We cut some vocals, and we realized that we needed to build out a new section in the song. We needed a bridge. So I dropped everything in Pro Tools. We recorded some tracks, and then I came back to Ableton. And I built out what was the beginning of the bridge. But you'll hear that it was a huge jump, right? We needed to get there, which we filled in after the fact. We were really looking to grab feeling, right? The feeling that we had, we wanted other people to feel that too. When I heard these strings, I said, oh, that's it. So once I dropped the bridge back into Pro Tools, as you could hear, it just jumped, right? We had to find a way to take us from the main melody to the bridge. And that's where Imago came in. So Imago, he came in and he laid a string line to get us kind of out of the main melody and then prepare the listener for the impactful strings that we're about to hit. So for him, it started with this just basic like string line. Which are really just holds, again, to just get you from one section to another. But there was still a bit of a jump, right? And I asked him to give me a stab or give me something to roll into that part. And we came up with this. once we fleshed out the arrangement and had all of our sections laid out from there, it was on and popping. It was good. The song was already taking a life of its own and already in motion. So from there, it was just sprinkles, little things like chimes and breath and just little sprinkles that like little ear candy for you. One of those pieces of ear candy, though, was a percussion loop that I really felt needed to come in at certain parts. Once we had all the vocals in and I learned the structure of the song, learned where I wanted to pull and push feeling into the song or for the listener, when the hook came around, I needed it to pick up a little bit, right? Her vocals, timing-wise, had picked up a bit, and so I wanted to match that with the production. And I found this perk loop and brought this in here, which I think by itself, if I had added the perk loop from the beginning, it would have changed the entire trajectory of how we made the song. And that's why I really like to leave things kind of bare in the beginning and fill in the gaps once I've heard where the artist is trying to take us. The perk loop, though, coming in on the hook, again, was like a little bit of like a jarring feeling, like all of a sudden it comes in. So I had to move through the song and find little moments to bring it in so that it wasn't such a surprise once you've heard it where it's supposed to go. In some of the initial writing and melody sessions, Baby D, who recorded this song and is a co-writer on the song as well, she laid some really, really cool ad-lib vocals. And to me, I heard them as part of the beat. So I did just that. I took her vocals and I added it to my beat mix rather than adding them to my vocal mix. I kind of break things up. Yeah, I break it up into like instrumental mix and vocal mix, and very, very much like how I'm creating room for the kick and the sub. Ultimately, with the instrumental mix, I'm creating room for the vocal to shine through in the center. So I took those ad-lib vocals and made them part of the beat because they are. And that's it. That's how we put the song together. A lot of the decision-making came from the vocals themselves, came from how we were vibing and how we were connecting in the sessions. And some of the later decisions came from ASTU's writing. Once she sang Brave, Will You Be Brave for Me? The song came from such an emotional state. And it was palpable. It was palpable to us in the room. We all felt it. And hopefully you feel it as a listener too. Thank you so much for watching my On the Radar beat breakdown of Brave. Catch you next time.